Hello, hola, bonjour, and ciao. Welcome to Astrology Now with astrologer Babula Clement and myself, Cheryl Gottschall. And this is where we follow the wave of planetary movements as they occur in real time. In this episode, we'll be exploring far and wide into the next lunar cycle, which kicks off with the full moon in Happy Wanderer Sagittarius. And this moon calls us to explore uncharted territory, to seek higher truths and follow the star trails wherever they may lead. So the journey begins now. So grab your Indiana Jones boots, your hat and your whip, and climb aboard the Cosmic Adventure Express as Babula and I continue to follow those star trails into the age of Aquarius. So hello, Babula.
Hi, Cheryl. What a great intro. And yes, Sagittarius, a sign of adventure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Who knows where the trail will lead? Yeah.
Absolutely. And as you were speaking those words, my mind went straight away to, and I've shared with you and a few friends, a whole series of YouTube podcasts that I've been watching that I started to watch when I got really ill a couple of months ago and had no energy for anything, didn't even want to watch anything serious.
Yeah.
Came across this, and it's this young, I'll just dive straight into it because it's very relevant to what's going on right now.
Mm.
Her name is Norali. She's Dutch. She's in her mid-30s, and her YouTube channel is called Itchy Boots. I highly recommend it. She's amazing. She has been traveling the world for the last few years solo on her motorbike, on her own, going into far out places. And you can see when she's just on the road, like dirt tracks in the middle of nowhere in a country that most of us would never even dream of ever getting to,
Mm.
she's just so happy. She's so full of joy. And what's interesting, I thought, oh, she's got to be a Sag. So I did find her date of birth, not the time, but the date. Surprisingly, she's a Cancer.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. But she has a couple of planets in Sagittarius and a couple of planets in Gemini.
Mm.
And I suspect her Cancerian sun is probably in the ninth house of travel,
Mm. Mm.
right? So very, very fascinating. And as I watch her, what I'm filled with is her love of adventure and the absolute joy that it brings her. And she's fearless. But she's a Cancerian. She also knows how to take very good care of herself. So
Yes.
she's not reckless and foolhardy. She informs herself ahead of time, but off she goes. It's fantastic. So this is very much the kind of energy of this full moon.
Yeah. And I'll point out that I'm wearing a dark purple vest and you're wearing a lighter coloured purple cardigan,
That's
which
right.
is the colour of Sagittarius, which was many people saying anyway, and I think it's true. As we were saying before we started
Yeah.
recording, that you were saying Sagittarians love purple.
Yeah.
Now, in Aurosoma color therapy, purple represents um, transformation and healing. And I know we often think of Pluto as being transformative, but this is transformation through travel, learning
Right.
about other cultures, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't help but, and it's about perspective too, because it's Sagittarius is very visionary too. So,
Mm.
it's yeah, so you're looking at other things, you're observing and taking it all in, and that changes you at a level that you're not always aware of.
It really does. And our horizons are broadened, our minds open, whenever we go. I remember the first time I went to India, like blew my mind because it's an experience in a place that's completely different to what I know
Yeah.
and have known. And that is true. And one of the things that's really struck me is I feel like some kind of transformation has happened inside of me just by watching this woman travel the world on the back of her motorbike.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is time and time again, in the middle of almost nowhere, um, people help her, people give her food, people take her home and give her a bed for the night. And if she gets into any kind of bother, although she's pretty well prepared, people just help her. And she talks to people, they talk to her. Like there's this incredible reminder that people are fundamentally good
Mm.
everywhere you go. You know,
Yeah.
we often forget that because, you know, government's seen hell bent on, you know, destroying things, but people are fundamentally good and helpful and people want to help. And that brings me to the Cancerian part of this because um, we're coming into a very Cancerian period. And Cancer is very, very different to Sagittarius.
Mm.
So in the lead up to this full moon, which invites us, you know, to expand our minds and our thinking, we have quite a lot about to move into Cancer. So on the 9th of June, so the full moon's on the 11th, on the 9th, Mercury will make a conjunction with Jupiter at 29 degrees of Gemini. So Jupiter's coming to the end of its 13-month-long journey through the sign of Gemini. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. We're about to head into the Sag moon. But before Jupiter leaves Gemini, it joins up with Mercury, the ruler of Gemini. And then Mercury goes into Cancer that day, and the next day Jupiter goes into Cancer. So Jupiter, the planet of expansion
Mm.
and the natural ruler of Sagittarius, is about to move into Cancer for the first time in 12 years
Mm.
and will be in Cancer for about 13 months. So
Yeah.
that's one of the significant shifts of 2025. There's many of them, but this is one of them for sure.
Yeah. And that's that Jupiter going into Cancer, it's sort of delving deep and growing through our emotional richness within us, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and also deepens our connection to home and homeland as well and family. And I think that we could, a sense of patriotism could come to
Mm,
the fore as well. And we'll care more for family personally and the human family. That's the other part of it, isn't it?
that's right.
Mm.
That's right. And I tend to see that as, you know, in our most immediate personal world as our family, you know, and the people we live with and the people we identify as our close family bonds. And then we expand out into community, don't we? And then we expand out into the nation and the country and the culture we are part of.
Yeah.
And then we expand out into the community of humanity and the whole world.
Mm.
But Jupiter in Cancer is very important. And in astrology, we say that Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer, meaning it's a very healthy, positive, strong sign for it to be in. And it sounds a little contradictory because Jupiter's so much about expansion, and Cancer's very, even the symbol for Cancer suggests, you know, the arms of a mother wrapping around a child and holding it close.
Mm.
But as you said, that we're coming into a period now that's offering some beautiful expansion of our personal world,
Mm.
of our in our own homes, our family bonds. And if we don't have blood family around us, or we may not have any blood family remaining. Some people get to an age where you're the only one left,
Yeah.
perhaps, or you're not in communication with family. There will be people that you feel are family.
Yes, I was going to say that it's where you feel a sense of family, really, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, and then
And
you
that's
can
right.
let those how can I say it, those boundaries soften and
Yeah.
let people in, and see the real you and share your emotions, like I did the other day with my little meltdown, like so.
That's right. But that's exactly right. And knowing that you're in a space where the people you're with, their arms are open to hold that,
Yeah.
you know, and that you feel safe. And that if we feel safe within a certain situation or certain people, you might be with a therapist, you might be with a family member, you might be with really close, intimate friends.
Mm.
And we feel safe to be able to open up in that way emotionally.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful healing thing.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder how that's going to, like the theme of how that will change over the next cycle. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it's really hard to see how things play out, of course, usually all the time, because life is just up for grabs most of the time, you know.
That's right. And there are so many other influences going on at the same
Yes.
time astrologically, so it's never
Yes.
just the one thing.
Yeah.
But I think this is potentially for us all, for most of us, a very positive influence coming in. And as I say, it's traditionally said to be exalted in this sign, and it's
Mm.
offering this possibility of deepening and strengthening those intimate bonds with people we really care about. And it can also, of course, Jupiter always expands everything. So it can also mean there can just be a lot going on in family life. And things might get very emotional because Jupiter increases everything.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I'm going to bring up the opposite point, as usual, is when we have too much of that, we can feel smothered
It,
and
it
vice
can be,
versa.
that's right.
Yeah, so we just have to find that nice balance, don't we?
Yeah, that's right. So there will be a lot going on. And of course, how that plays out for each of us depends on where Cancer sits in our own birth chart,
Mm,
what house that is,
mm,
which is the sort of area of life. Is it in your relationship area? Is it to do with your work and your career or your health? What arena will that Jupiter be bringing its fundamentally positive energy to? But Cancer is also very much about protection.
mm,
How do we go about protecting what is very near and dear to us? What
mm,
what we love and who we love, and what does that look like? Because we're wanting to bring our best or bring the best possible outcome with Jupiter and Cancer to that arena of our life, to that area of our
mm,
life.
yeah. Yes, good point. Good point.
So then, of course, so Jupiter goes into, and by the way, that of course, 0 degrees of Cancer and the four cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, are known in astrology as the world points. It sort of forms this cardinal axis at those 0 degrees. And so that can also mean that when a planet, and by the way, of course, Neptune and Saturn have just gone into 0 Aries,
Yes.
while Cancer's coming into 0 Cancer. So these world points are getting very strongly activated this year. And so that means it also has a big impact on the whole world,
Mm,
on the
mm,
world stage, which of course is happening and very relevant. So it's both personal and collective at the same time.
mm, mm,
Yeah. So then the very next day, so in the early morning of the 10th, Jupiter at 0 degrees of Cancer. And by the way, Mercury's just gone into Cancer at the same time. So Mercury
mm,
and Jupiter will be traveling close together, which is quite nice in itself because, Mercury and Jupiter have a lot to do with our mind and the way we think and our point of view, and
mm,
they're quite nice and very happily sitting there together at this crossover point between late Gemini and early Cancer. So if we're paying attention, we'll notice a change of energy. We'll notice a change in the mood. Um,
mm,
on the 11th, 5:43 p.m. on the evening of the 11th is the full moon at 20 degrees of Sagittarius.
mm.
Um, I always think of Sagittarius as having a kind of a wild, it's the call of the wild,
Mm.
that it's that desire sometimes just to get in the car and get the hell out of here and hit the road and go on a road trip, and not even have a plan,
Yes.
or to get yourself to the airport, make sure your passport's up to date. You just want to go somewhere and get away from the stuff
Stuff.
of the stuff.
I'm reminded of there was a song that came out some years ago by Emiliana Torini called Jungle Drum. And that's what I think. It's like the call of the jungle drum, the wildness of it all.
That's right. And the big wide open spaces and
Yes.
the sense of freedom that
Yeah,
comes with that,
exactly. Do
Yep.
not hamper a Sagittarian. They will not like it.
No,
I can tell you from personal experience, being a Sag myself, do not try and put a lid on me.
that's right. Or put a fence around me.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
all,
used to know a Sagittarian who not only was he not interested in ever getting married, he didn't even like going to weddings
uh,
and this is not true of all Sages, of course, but it was an expression of that energy of no, I need to be free.
mm.
Yeah,
It's also a sign that is philosophical in nature too. Very philosophical. I know that about myself, and I go, oh, that happened. And I don't get emotionally drawn into it. I just look at it and go, well, that's going to happen. It's natural. Or other people are freaking out about it. So
right.
looking at the wisdom of the experience too, or whatever's taking place, well, what's going on there? Hmm.
That's a very good point, which I think comes back to Jupiter, Cancer. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. And
Mm.
isn't it interesting that because even when Jupiter is going into Cancer the day before the moon will already be in Sagittarius.
Mm.
And these two signs are very contradictory in many ways.
Yeah.
But I think that that philosophical energy of wisdom that Jupiter also embodies will be expanding in our lives through family, sense of belonging or not, um, and those deeper personal, intimate bonds and connections. Like
Mm.
it sort of takes on a philosophical framework, of understanding. I often see Jupiter in many ways as according to whatever sign it's in, is this has got a lot to do with our own personal quest for philosophical and spiritual understanding about the meaning of life.
Yes.
So while it's going through Cancer now for the next year or so,
Mm.
like there'll be a lot of meaning to be gleaned out of this more personal aspect and our sense of what is home, where do I belong, who are the people that are most important to me,
Yes.
how do I prioritize that, and that has real meaning and significance.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. So I think, like broadening our horizons, answer the call for adventure,
Yeah.
seeking truth and wisdom in our life, and setting aside limitations and rethink what freedom means and looks like to us. I've had to do that quite a few times in my life. Like, if I do that, am I really free? Am I making a different choice based on a limiting belief? Um,
Right.
you know, and I sort of try and dig down to find the truth in what holds me back from living a big life, which is natural for us, for Sagittarius. But sometimes, we can develop these limiting beliefs because of experiences that we have in life. So this is a time when that moon shines, so we get clarity to understand the beliefs that we need to release that hold us back from living the life that we really do want.
Absolutely. That's wonderfully said. Absolutely. And I would say over those few days of the full moon, while she's in Sagittarius and in full brightness, it's a wonderful opportunity to look at that. Like, how could I feel more expansive and more free? And it might just simply be sometimes I need to just get in the car and go away for a couple of days.
Absolutely.
That might be just what is the medicine that's needed. Because, let's face it, most of us are in agreement with everyone most people that I'm speaking to, like life's been pretty full on the last few months. And,
Yeah.
people are really reeling from a lot of that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think with the Sagittarian energy, I want to say Carpe Diem, seize the moment. Now's the time to expand our horizons, embrace adventure, and redefine that of what that freedom really means.
Yeah. And what does it mean? Just find ways to have a bit of fun and just
Yeah, break free from routine and mediocrity.
absolutely.
Mm.
Well spoken is very dear to Sagittarius, those words. That's right. break away from it.
I know.
The dreariness of the humdrum of all the demands of daily life.
Yes. Oh gosh, not the minutia. No.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so it's a very, very expansive, energized full moon. And just I was just kind of we were having a little chat about asteroids and how fascinating asteroids are to include and play around with. And I happen to have a program that gives me 10,000 named asteroids. There are many more, but that's just a small selection that I get to play with. So I was curious and I thought, is there anything interesting going on with this full moon? Um, right on the sun at 20 degrees at the point of the full moon, the asteroid America is on the sun. And when I say on the sun, I always keep the orbs really close, 3 degrees maximum, but usually they're within kind of 1 or 2 degrees. The asteroid America and the asteroid Kiev,
Oh wow.
I know, are on the sun. Also Quetzalcoatl, the great, serpent god
Yeah.
of the Incas,
Yeah.
is on the sun. On the moon, on the full moon at 22 degrees, is the Indian god Shiva.
Oh yeah.
So he's a very important figure but also an asteroid named Rockefeller. I know. So
Just can't make this shit up, I tell
you
you.
can't make this shit up. Indeed, indeed. Now, leading on a couple of days later, because I'm leading up to something that will also bring us back to the importance of this Jupiter going into Cancer. But before
Oh,
that, on the 15th, there's a
well,
square between Mars and Uranus.
right.
What were you going to say?
Well, before we get off that date, we were talking about it before we started recording about the full and on when the full moon is in Sagittarius. And I don't know whether we should introduce it here, but I'm going to anyway. The asteroid Sappho is in opposition to the black moon Lilith. Okay. So, and Sappho represents poetic artistic ability, same-sex attraction, sexuality, an ability with words and emotional expression. And it's really interesting because our editor, Barry, who unfortunately still has his foot up on the recliner with bad sprain, but he's been listening to the radio a lot because he can't do much else and tuning into these discussions around the LGBTQ issue and how other groups are what's the word, imposing on their safe space, right? So I just find it, and he's heard a few conversations around that. And even though we're not on, that's not happening right yet, but I just thought it was very interesting, the timing.
It is because the black moon Lilith is, of course, in Scorpio now, and she will continue through Scorpio for the rest of this year. I think she exits at the end of December. I forget the exact date. So that, of course, can bring up lots of deep issues around sexuality, and sex and our relationship with it and how it can be misused and manipulated and all kinds of things to do with the black moon as she goes through Scorpio. But the opposition to Sappho is definitely very interesting.
Mm.
And as you've expressed, she represents all of those things. But I looked into Sappho a lot years ago, and some people will know that Sappho apparently was a real person who lived back in Greece in the classical times on the Isle of Lesbos, in the Greek islands. And so she's very much, her symbol is the double Venus symbol, which is a symbol that's used by lesbians to represent the lesbian community.
Mm.
And so it's kind of always assumed that, on this island, she had a school for women, and she wrote very, very beautiful love poetry. There are fragments of her poetry remaining, and I've read some of it. Very, very beautiful. And Sappho can be strong in someone's chart because it shows up in my chart quite significantly. But I'm not gay, and I know that I'm not. but I know many women who are,
Mm.
and I have friends who are, and or homosexual men too, same. So that's an easy kind of connection for me. But the real thing about Sappho is that she's fundamentally about love, and it's like love is love. Whoever, it doesn't matter who you love is love,
Yeah.
and that she ran a school for women, so she's educating women in a world that was probably not doing that a whole lot on this island. And she wrote this amazing poetry. So that's very interesting. And
Yeah, isn't it?
yeah, it's very interesting. And opposite the Black Moon Lilith, it just kind of relates to all of these themes around sexuality and gender
Mm.
and the right to speak and communicate and express yourself freely.
Yeah, yeah. Um the discord penetrating that safe space for the
Mm.
demographic. Yeah.
What Yeah, so it's interesting because Venus, so Sappho, and I didn't look at the degree, but Sappho would be pretty close to where Venus is on the full moon. Venus will be at 5 degrees of Taurus,
Mm.
in opposition to the Black Moon Lilith at 8.
Mm.
Sappho will be around that Venus point as well.
Mm.
Oh, actually, I've written a list of asteroids that are right on the Venus, and Sappho's right there amongst them. Look at me, look. I've written a long list of them. There's Venus and there's Sappho. So you were the one who kind of really spotted that and brought that up. So very interesting.
Mm.
Yeah. And yes, yes, that's
Yeah, I'm trying to think, should I introduce this or not? Because we did talk about the asteroid Arachne as well.
yeah.
So I just put that in. At the same time, Arachne is opposite Saturn. This is still on the full moon. Um, and Arachne, this is the spider. So we're talking about intricate and complicated, and the web we weave when we deceive others and entrapment. So we've got that with the full moon in Sagittarius, which wants to know the truth of things. But we've got this, this Arachne opposite Saturn, which wants to, in opposition to Saturn, though, but wants to keep it all like create this web of deceit. So I just find that fascinating.
Yes, it is. And as you're speaking about that, what it's kind of reminding me of is that it feels like we're jumping around, but there's a lot of things that are interconnecting
Yep.
during this period.
Yep.
And as Jupiter enters Cancer and all of those themes that we spoke of, it's actually forming a square to that Saturn that
Mm.
you just mentioned in relationship to the asteroid Arachne.
Yeah.
So that square will be exact on the 16th of June.
Mm.
The minute Jupiter actually enters Cancer, she's entering into the square aspect with Saturn. So,
Yeah.
so Jupiter goes into Cancer, but when a planet forms a strong aspect to another one, as it's changing sign, you have to include the relationship with that other planet because it's not just Jupiter in Cancer, it's Jupiter in Cancer square Saturn in Aries.
That's right. Which blows my mind.
Yeah, that's right. So that now we can kind of go there, but I think that's relating to what you were just saying as well.
Mm.
So so Jupiter, the basic principle of Jupiter is expansion,
Yeah.
expansion and growth and increase. And the principle of Saturn is contraction
Mm.
and it has a certain density about it. Jupiter's the big gas giant in
Mm.
the solar system. Saturn is the planet with rings around it,
Yes. Mm.
right? It's contained, it's held, it's got that sort of symbolism about it. So Saturn in Aries squaring Jupiter, Jupiter wants to just expand and expand and expand, but it's got this square to Saturn, and Saturn in Aries is got a lot to do. There's many ways we can talk about that.
Mm.
It's got a lot to do with the effort that's required to claim our independence and our autonomy. And we're going to have to learn how to discipline and focus our will and our impulses to accomplish some kind of goal. And Saturn's Aries nature is very impulsive. I
Yes.
want it and I want it right now. And Saturn's going, that's not
Mm.
going to work. You'll
Yep.
be
Slow.
bashing your head up against a brick wall if you go at it that way.
Mm.
Slow and steady. You need a plan. And meanwhile, Aries is rolling its eyes and just going, oh, for God's sake, I haven't got time. I just want to go for it and do it. But it just won't work if we approach things that way. So
Yeah.
there's this real push-pull between these two, that desire to enrich our personal world through Cancer and form those deep personal bonds and relationships and connections over here, versus, but I want what I want and I want to do what I want to do, Saturn in
Mm.
Aries,
Yeah. It's yeah.
right? There's a real tension being held between those two. And that can get very uncomfortable for anyone who has a strong aspect between Saturn and Jupiter in their own chart. I do. I have the opposition. I kind of know that contradiction and that push-pull that goes on between the two.
Mm.
And but out of that can come a great deal of wisdom, because these two planets both are about wisdom, but they do go about it in a very different way. Jupiter's wisdom comes from the expansive experiences of life and expanding our horizons. Jupiter is just through discipline, focus, doing the hard work, going the hard yards, meeting the challenges of life.
Yeah, I think you meant Saturn then.
Oh, Saturn, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
correcting me. That's
I'm going
right.
double taking my head. What?
My mind tends to sort of go
Yeah.
and
But I'm thinking of the analogy of the it's like the sprinter and the marathon runner, or the marathon runner who's running for themselves, or the marathon runner who's running with who's the what's the word, the relay runner doing a marathon, working with the team, and and taking things in as they go, and come on, yes, but there's a real difference, isn't it?
very much,
Mm.
very much. And I think it's like Jupiter has to accept the presence of Saturn, and which means that the natural desire to expand, like it, for example, just as a metaphor, this could be very real. Jupiter goes into Cancer and someone goes, I want to buy a new house. I want to buy a beautiful big house. And I want it to look like this, or I want to go and live in the country, and I want my whole family to be there. And Saturn's over here going, well, how is that going to actually work?
Yes.
It's the voice of reality, which will feel like a wet blanket to
Yeah.
Jupiter.
Yeah.
Don't stop me. I just want to go for this thing. But over here, Saturn's thinking, well, yes, but you might need to, maybe you need a bit more money. Maybe you need to figure out how this is actually going to work.
Yes. Yeah. The good old reality checker.
The reality checks. And in the world, I think this will express in the world, on the world stage, as lots of issues around countries and nations, Cancer, Jupiter, trying to figure out and come to terms with how do we do the best for our country, while there's these very strong forces of conflict and looming war on the horizon, that's this Aries part, the reality of that. How do we protect our family when there's these other issues going on? How do we protect our country? Issues around borders.
Mm.
All these things are going to be going on during that particular, particularly during the month of June, as that square is really playing out strongly.
Mm. Yeah, very interesting, actually. I think I was listening. Someone said the other day that I'm going to get this wrong, so I won't even bother because I can't quite remember. It was something like Ukraine wanted to make the United States another a part of itself or something, and I'm thinking, what? That's
Getting
ridiculous. Not
this
going to
is getting
happen.
so crazy.
But it's just, yeah, there's a lot going on around countries, I think, and we touched on this last episode about America pulling in, you know, and pulling away from other countries, and pulling in and wanting to refocus the greatness in their own mind of America, but apple pie and all that. So, America is the apple pie, whatever they say.
Yeah. Well, astrologically, of course, this is super interesting because the United States has the Sun conjunct Jupiter in Cancer.
Cancer, yeah.
So the United States is coming up to its 12-year Jupiter return. So
Yeah.
every 12 years we have a Jupiter return, which is the beginning of a new 12-year cycle of growth and expansion.
Mm.
But of course, as it does this, it's got the Saturn square from Aries, which will continue to, Saturn will next year continue to make its way through Aries. It only gets to 2 degrees this year and it'll slip back into Pisces. So yes, there'll be a lot going on. And of course, Donald Trump, the current president, is a very Jupiterian character,
Mm.
the king of the gods, larger than life.
Yep.
People with very prominent Jupiters have that kind of energy about them.
Mm.
He's got a Sagittarius moon conjunct the South Node,
Mm.
born on the full moon of the Sagittarius full moon.
Mm.
Sagittarius full moon, Sun in Gemini. Sun in Gemini. That's right.
Yeah,
This is his
that's
full
right.
moon. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Let's
is
watch
his
that
full moon. He's
space.
coming up to his birthday.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, so watch this space. Oh, and then on the 17th of June, um, Mars. Now, this is significant. Normally, when Mars is not moving at his normal speed, he spends 6 weeks in a sign. But because he went through a retrograde period earlier in the year, he came into Leo at 6 degrees, went back into Cancer, and is only just about on the 17th of June will finally leave Leo, where he's been off and on since early November last year, finally is about to leave the sign of Leo and move into Virgo. So
Mm.
Mars in Leo is, very much the lion heart, the leader. It's just kind of big energy. Mars in Virgo is a very significant change of energy. So the Mars energy of action, of doing, of making decisions, of, go for it energy
Mm.
comes into Virgo,
Mm.
which is more of a quiet, subdued, practical, hardworking, detail-oriented earth sign.
And very organized, I might add.
Super. Mars in Virgo is excellent for organizing.
Yeah, and the impulse to organize. That's the
That's
thing.
right.
Yeah.
And to clean and tidy things up, and dot the I's and cross the T's
Yeah.
and tie up loose ends and clean stuff. That phrase, clean up your act, whatever that
Exactly.
means to you in your current life situation. What does cleaning up your act or cleaning up your life look like,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
It could be your health, work, your daily habits, those sort of things.
That's right. Or you go to your workspace and, the office is in a state of chaos. Well, Mars in Virgo is going to be that strong urge.
Mm.
And that's a great time to be doing and to get very specific and to really get down to the nitty-gritty details.
Well, we could feel the impulse, I guess, to be more detail oriented, maybe even a little nitpicky,
Yeah, absolutely.
critical, precise, yes, but not rushing.
Yes, it's not a big, see, Mars in Leo, it doesn't mean Mars in Leo is always like this, but the word rambunctious came to mind,
Mm.
that big rambunctious kind of energy of Mars in Leo. In Virgo, it's much more, it's very often the person who's busy working behind the scenes, getting things done
Yep. Yes.
without a big fanfare,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
don't need to announce it to all and sundry. They're just getting the job done.
Yeah. Maybe intentional action, I think,
Yeah,
in that organization. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
And like all earth signs always want a result for their effort.
Yeah.
You know, it's that, it's that pleasure you get when you finally get round to cleaning out the pantry. And then, the next morning you walk past and you open your pantry and go, and that satisfaction and the pleasure you get from, the transformation from utter chaos into something that's beautiful and clean and ordered. It's that kind of
Yeah.
feel, is that result you've got. Yes, it was a lot of work, but now that's so satisfying.
Yeah, I love to clean out my fridge.
Yes, see that's right. That's one job I don't like, but I really enjoy the satisfaction of a clean, tidy pantry.
Well, it's the end result of a clean fridge. You open it up and it looks beautiful.
It
Yeah.
looks beautiful. That's right. And people with Virgo energy will know exactly what we're talking about.
Mm.
Um, the downsides, because Mars can often be a little bit troublesome because it is the god of war after all, is
Mm.
that we can become so stressed by all the things we want to check off the to-do list
Yeah.
that we end up creating health problems. Or, some people's anxiety might escalate because of the desire in Virgo to get everything right.
Yes, that's true. You can just never do that because nothing is perfect,
And
even though
and
Virgos
that's
believe it
right.
is.
And even if it's perfect for 2 hours, it's not going to stay there.
But you know what? And you often talk about Virgo being the divine feminine, I think.
Mm.
You know, that striving for perfection, I think it's natural to human beings because um, it's like the evolution of ourselves, isn't it? To improve and
Yeah,
perfect ourselves, not just in our environment, but ourself, our soul, those sorts of things, and be better people on the planet and with other people.
that's right.
Yeah, so
That,
that
that's right.
divine,
And to fundamentally be a decent human and a good
yes,
person. That's right.
yeah,
And because Virgo is also a sign of service,
mm,
like what comes up through the sign of Virgo is, how can I help you? How can I help? Which is why this is also the sign of healers and people who are helping people. And it's because it's an earth sign, it's help in a very real and practical way. You
yes.
know, it's through herbs, through medicine, through, if someone's sick, it's the Virgo who will come in and clean their house for them or go and do the food shopping and cook them a meal
And it does it very efficiently, doesn't it?
very efficiently.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So stress and anxiety can arise with Mars in Virgo and the tendency to just be doing too much. It can have a bit of workaholic tendencies for those who might have been born with Mars in Virgo.
Mm.
I might recognize that. But
So
it's going to be a great 6 week period to just get stuff done.
just on a physical health level, though, because I think Virgo is to do with the digestive system, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm,
So there could be some inflammation to do with that as well, with Mars.
exactly.
Mm.
Because Mars brings heat, doesn't it? Heat
Yes.
and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
just sometimes just too much energy.
Mm.
So it can cause inflammation and digestive issues for sure. Small intestine in particular, but the whole digestive system is
Mm.
involved with Virgo very much. But it's also can be a very beneficial time to take some kind of active steps to improving health.
Mm.
And that can include exercise because I think it's very important with our Mars energy is to give him something to do, right? Give
Yeah.
Mars a job, or he starts getting really cranky,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Mm.
And picking fights for no good reason. He needs to have, I always feel that about Mars. He needs to have a positive job. Give him some, and Virgo loves a task, give me a job, give me a list of things to do,
Mm. Mm.
that sort of thing. But things that are helpful and useful.
Well, a good probiotic never goes astray, or a prebiotic.
That's right. That's right. Or a cleanse that this might be a time for someone who's thinking, oh God, I can feel I really need to do some kind of a cleanse. It's like it's time to take action. Mars is action.
Yes. Yeah. I've been thinking about a lymph node massage.
Yeah, just to
Good.
kind of get things
Get things
moving.
moving, get the sludge out.
And in winter we tend to feel a little bit stagnant, don't we? We
Yeah, we do.
stagnate a bit.
Yeah, not as active.
That's right.
Really, yeah. Hmm.
That's right. So moving right along, we seem to have a lot to talk about.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. And then on the 19th of June, but this is really in play through the whole month, I would say. You know, the Jupiter entering Cancer, forming a square to Saturn, but it's also squaring the Neptune, which is in early Aries. And on the 19th, that will be exact. But it's really, I would say, from the minute Jupiter enters Cancer, from then through the whole month of June, Jupiter is squaring Saturn and Neptune. But the exact square to Neptune is on the 19th. And that's a very potentially a very spiritually expansive combination of planets. But we've got to remember Saturn sitting right there as well. But how this can be beneficial, it can be, using Saturn to have a bit of discipline, because Neptune isn't disciplined,
No.
but using the Saturn to have a little bit of discipline around how to, making time for your spiritual practice, whatever that is, in the midst of everything that's going on, because that's actually a really beneficial thing to do and is actually de-stressing,
Mm,
when we just take that time out.
yes.
Um, because Jupiter Neptune is very often an energy that allows for a very easy, expansive, open state of consciousness.
Mm,
It's like these two planets they're quite boundless in many ways.
yeah.
Saturn's bringing in a bit of structure and boundary and discipline and focus. It's like having the discipline to sit on the meditation cushion as a metaphor and making the time to do it. As they say in yoga, just get yourself on the mat. It's getting yourself on the mat that's the first important step.
Mm,
From there, the practice can begin.
that's
And
true.
then something can open up, but you've got to get yourself there in the first place.
Yes, that's very true.
And
Mm,
that's the discipline.
yeah. Mm,
And then, of course, on the 21st, the sun goes into Cancer
yep.
and joins with Jupiter. So the sun will be moving a lot more quickly than Jupiter. Um, and of course, when the sun goes into Cancer every year, that's our winter solstice. So that's a solstice point, a very important point, which is also why these 0 degrees of the 4 cardinal signs are called the world degrees, but they're also the solstice and equinox points. They're very important
Yeah.
in the bigger scheme of things. So the
So,
sun will go into Cancer and will be making its approach to Jupiter, leading to the new moon on the 25th at 4 degrees of Cancer, conjunct Jupiter.
can we just go back to Sun moving into Cancer?
Mm,
Um, because I just wanted to bring attention, that's when our emotional world will become the focus, you know. And I think that's important to pay attention to that.
yeah,
We nurture ourselves and what we were saying before, connect with what feels like home.
yeah,
Mm,
that's right. And it's interesting for us here in the Southern Hemisphere, isn't it? Because in the North, that's the peak of their summer. But for us, it's winter time when we naturally feel like closing in and withdrawing and just spending more time at home. We don't feel like going out and about at night. The night, the it's the shortest night of the shortest day of the year. There's less light,
yeah.
there's less of an urge to be out and about. And
Mm,
we feel a bit more withdrawn. We're putting on the heaters, lighting the fire, wanting to eat hot soups and things like that.
yeah.
It's very kind of nesting energy, isn't it?
It is. I think that I'm just going by my observations of my family. My daughter in particular, who has Sun in Cancer, um, she can feel overwhelmed too, by waves of emotion at times. So if you're a Cancerian, I think while the sun's there, there's still that, there's like this highlight of it. And I always say to her, we'll try to, in my own way, use your emotions as a strength, not a weakness.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, we have to be true to our own nature. And because she is a Cancerian, she's here to grow and learn and know who she is through the energy of her feelings, through her feeling body and her
Yeah,
emotional nature. That's what it's there for. And
yeah,
it's not to be dismissed or belittled or ridiculed at all. That's actually her strength and her gift, isn't it?
it is. Yeah. Also, Cancerians being very psychic as a
They are
effect. Yeah. Mm,
very tuned in,
mm.
which is why it's interesting. People don't often think of this with Cancer. Cancerians are often very good at business.
Yeah.
Because, particularly if the business is to do with something that's very personal, such as food or making beautiful things like your daughter for the home, you know,
Mm.
it's if it's connected to that or taking care of other people, their carers. I see that all the time. Um, they're often very, very highly intuitive with that, and they can be very good at business because they just tune into what people need.
Yes. Yeah. And she is like that.
Yeah,
Um, then she gets anxious about it. Again, an anxious sign as well, you know.
it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it can feel quite insecure in this world,
Mm.
you know, it's in this very harsh world, because it's a very soft energy.
It is, yeah. And there's times when she says, I don't even want to go out. I don't want to go to the shops and get the groceries. So she started actually ordering groceries online because she just doesn't want to go out there at various times, you know. A lot,
That's
a
right.
lot lately because I think the world's just been a bit rough and Cancerians feel the sharp edge of the times we live in. Yeah.
They really do. One of my sisters is a multi-cancerian, and she's exactly the same. And
Mm.
her focus is on the home and family. She has a lovely home with a beaut. She's made a beautiful garden. She's very artistic. That's her world. She
Yeah.
goes out a little bit, but she keeps that to the minimum possible,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
And the
know?
other thing with my daughter, I'm going to give her a plug here, by the way.
Good,
She makes
good.
beautiful candles and gorgeous fragrances. And it's if you go to her website, it's Casale, casale.com.au. And Casale is Italian because her heritage is half Italian. So when she went to Italy, this is her nonna was from Casale Popolo. So it's a lovely name. So she's picked up the word Casale and uses it in her business. And I think it's that sort of like a nod to her grandmother, her
That's
Italian
beautiful.
grandmother. Yeah. So, and this is that Cancerian energy. And she now does this from home. Gone from a corporate job, which made her very unhappy,
Yeah.
to something that has deep meaning for her around family and the ability to work from home and to provide people with something that is handmade, which really is the current trend at the moment. Artisan work is just amazing. It's going nuts, actually.
Right, because people are getting sick of all the cheap, nasty, mass-produced stuff,
Yes,
full
yeah,
of chemicals and all that sort of thing.
yeah,
That's right. And I love that it's connected to her bloodline
yeah.
and to the Italian connection in her own heritage and her grandmother. See, that's so Cancerian.
Isn't it though?
Just beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah, and on a good day when she's got a lot of energy, she loves to cook.
absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. Feeding people. Cancer lives to feed people because it's the mother, isn't it? It's the mother energy that wants to naturally, because in the body, you know, the breasts are governed by cancer and milk and food. And what you're saying before about her when she was working in the corporate world, when people are working in fields that is not in alignment with who they are and it's making them really unhappy, that's a recipe for developing health problems.
and she did. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's why she left. Yeah.
So her whole being will be in a much better state doing what she
It
loves and
is.
working from home in what absolutely suits her and resonates with who she is.
Mm,
It's
mm.
fantastic.
Sometimes,
And she gets her mama to go in and help sometimes as
yes, I
well.
work for her as well.
That's right, keeps it in the
In the
family.
family, yes, isn't that fascinating? Yeah, and and just to expand a little bit on that Cancerian energy for all you beautiful Cancerian people, um, her husband and his brother built the house because her husband's a carpenter, brother is a builder, father-in-law designed it, he's an architect, and mother-in-law is an interior designer. So, hello, here's all this
All in the family.
huge family connection. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
That's that I love that. And that's what that brings you back to what I was saying in the beginning. I think, a healthy society starts with family and family bonds.
Mm,
And we live in a world where forces have been intent for some decades now on breaking apart those family bonds.
mm,
And that then creates a disintegration within the entire society and the whole nation. And that's been actively going on for some time. And it's just getting stronger and stronger. And that's why it's really important. And again, I say if you don't have a great relationship with blood family or you don't have family, then to create connections with people that feel like family. It is so important that in our personal world we have those strong bonds. And
absolutely.
that
Yeah,
has an impact. It just goes out and out and out,
that's the glue, isn't it?
and I think this whole period as we're coming into the Cancerian time, the solstice, but Jupiter and Cancer, and see the square to Saturn in Aries, it can feel at odds with what I want,
Yeah,
Aries.
yeah,
And there's nothing wrong with going for what you want, but we're looking at, okay, but it can't be at the expense of this over here.
yes,
And the family can't also be at the expense of your own individual needs and truth,
yeah.
So
But I
there's
think,
that real challenge going on between the tension between those two.
and this is what I don't understand about what is going on in the world at the moment, because there's this ruthlessness at the expense of family, at the expense of
Absolutely.
society, at the expense of community. Yeah, so that's something we just have to work through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
And to be really aware of and conscious of. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. So
So
where are we
here
now?
we are.
Oh, so we've
So
been,
that's it, I think. That sort of brings us to the new moon. And it's going to be a really powerful new moon in Cancer coming up. So we can really have a good look at that then.
yeah. So there's a lot going on this month, isn't there? There really is a lot.
There is. I would suggest that we make great use of Venus going through Taurus,
Mm,
because Venus is beautiful in Taurus and it helps to keep us connected to what is grounded, sane, practical, beautiful,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Slow down and savor life's pleasures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Babula, for sharing this time with all of us again. And
My pleasure, Cheryl.
if you enjoyed this episode, please like it. And if you feel so inclined, subscribe, share it with your friends. If you do subscribe, remember to tap the bell so you get all the notifications. And we will be back again next time for the next lunar cycle. So until then, auf Wiedersehen.
Adios.
Adios, amigos. Bye for
Bye.
now.